All right, guys. So the next part that we're going to do is about proportions and how to use them and then each parts of it and whatnot. So first, let's define what proportions are. So proportions are things, and I'm going to write it very generically, but you can plug in any number for that. So things like A over B equals C over D. So in other words, two ratios that are equal is called a proportion. Okay, and each of these things are called terms. So A, B, C, D are terms of the proportion. Okay, the next definition is extremes. So this part, so A and D are extremes, whereas B and C are called means. And this will play significant value in our proportions and using them and solving them. So let's get to that part. The next part is, so say we have A over B equals C over D, right? So if we wanted to compare these values, and for instance, let's say 2 over 4 is equal to 4 over 8. Right? If we want to compare them, it's like we mentioned before in previous classes, we should have a common denominator, right? And the easiest way to do it, and I mentioned this, that this can be a resort that you take, or the process that you take, is just to multiply these two together and you have a common thing. So more generically, if we have something like that, we could multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by B times D. Right? And since the order of multiplication doesn't matter due to communion property, I can write it whichever way I want. So if I multiply B over D, on one hand, I have AD, and on the other hand, because the D's cancel out, I have CB, or BC, right? And this is where so this is called the cross product, because if we were to take out this part here and just look at it from the original, you're multiplying across essentially, right? So you're multiplying the extremes together to get on one side, and then you're multiplying the means together to get to the other side. And if this is true, then this has to be true because they're all equivalent equations that we've just written. Okay, so let's use that with numbers. So 3/4, is this equal to 15/20, right? And to use our cross product that we just talked about, you would multiply the extremes, so 3 times 20, and we have to check if that's equal to 4 times 15. And if it is, it's true. If it's not, then it's false, right? So here we have 60, and then also 4 times 15 is equal to 60, so it is true, right? So 3/4 is equal to 15 over 20. Another way you could have done it is to, since 15 and 20 have a common factor, you could factor that out and see if you could reduce it to 3/4. Okay, let's look at the next one. 6/7, is that equal to 30 over 32? So once again, we multiply across the extremes and the means. So 6 times 32, we have to see if that's equal to 30 times 7. Okay, so let me do that out. 32 times 6, 192, and then 30 times 7 is 210. They are clearly not equal to each other, so this one is false, right? And that is how you would check if a proportion is true or not, just by cross multiplying. So a few calculations, and then you'll be able to tell if they are the same value or not. Okay, so in the next video, we'll go into a little more depth, not only just using numbers, but see if we can find out what the missing variable might be.